Hello and welcome to The Full Scottish here on Broadcasting Scotland. Now, on a normal day, I would be delighted to say that we're not going to be talking about Brexit or the election today, but we are going, sadly, to be talking about a much more dramatic story. A story we've been following here on Broadcasting Scotland for some time now. The story of the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia in Malta. She was a campaigning journalist who died back in October of 2017, murdered in a car bombing. And there have been some fairly dramatic developments, and our Maltese correspondent, Lizzie Eldridge, I believe, is joining me on the line now. Lizzie, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hi, Lizzie. So, first of all, for people who don't know really anything about this case, can you give us just a very quick bit of background? Who was Daphne, and how and why did she die?
Okay. Daphne Caruana Galizia was Malta's foremost investigative journalist. She exposed massive amounts of corruption in this country, and she was hounded by the government that are currently still in power. She was, a hate campaign was mounted against her. She was assassinated. She was blown up in a car bomb just minutes from her home on the 16th of October 2017. Since then, activists, journalists, NGOs, the Council of Europe, the European Parliament have been trying to get justice for Daphne, and it has been a long process and it hasn't stopped. Mm-hmm. So this is now over 2 years on. So she was killed in a massive car bomb. The government then behaved with impunity, complete impunity. The amount of corruption in Malta has been spilling out like there's no tomorrow. I mean, it's quite incredible. All the stories that Daphne broke, all the stories she wrote about, she was right. This has been proved right. And recently, just over 2 weeks ago, or just under 2 weeks ago, there was the arrest of a guy called Melvin Toma, and he was the middleman in the whole assassination plot. They have 3 stooges in court right now who are the kind of low-life assassins who they arrested in December 2017. But everybody knew these guys were not the masterminds. So what we've been trying to do, and I'm part of a women's-led pressure group called Occupy Justice, and also involved with a civil society NGO called Republica, and we have been saying we need to find out who masterminded this. So the middleman was arrested just under 2 weeks ago. He was a criminal. He's Maltese, and he was arrested because a sniffer dog sniffed out a huge amount of money in a suitcase of a Libyan guy at the airport. So that was then traced to this guy, the middleman, who was arrested and started spilling the beans and saying he was the middleman in the assassination plot. The very next day, on the Wednesday, nearly 2 weeks ago, a guy called Jürgen Fennick was arrested. Now, Jürgen Fennick, we know, because there was a Dubai company, offshore company, exposed by Daphne in the months before she died, called 17 Black. Just over a year ago, the Daphne Project, which is a collaborative group of journalists from 45 different media organizations, they worked together, they continued Daphne's stories. And just over a year ago, the Times of Malta and Reuters broke the news that 17 Black, this offshore company set up in Dubai, belonged to Jürgen Fennick. Jürgen Fennick was arrested just under 2 weeks ago. Jürgen Fennick is the chairman of a power station in Malta, which is called Electrogas, which was set up as the flagship of this government. It was going to have lower bills, blah, blah, blah. It was set up with Jürgen Fennick and his group. It was also set up with Sokar, who are Azerbaijani state-owned oil company, and it was set up with a German company, Siemens. Mm. So we knew over a year ago that Jürgen Fennick owned 17 Black. 17 Black was set up to pump money into the Panama companies belonging to the Minister of Tourism, Conrad Mizzi, and the Prime Minister's right-hand man, Keisha Kembry. So we decided the pieces of the jigsaw fitting together.
I see, and now both Kembry and Mizzi resigned just this week, didn't they?
They did, yes. So on the Tuesday, Keisha Kembry resigned, and then he was arrested. and he should be arrested. I mean, he is part of this. Jürgen Fenech had been spilling the beans. Melvin Thoma, the middleman, asked for a pardon. He wanted a presidential pardon. The Prime Minister, Joseph Muscat, took it upon his own head, "Oh, I'll shoulder this responsibility by myself." The problem is, we have in Malta a state-captured system, so the judiciary and the police were in control of one person, the Prime Minister. He decides who gets to be a judge, a magistrate. He has a commissioner of police who has said nothing throughout all this. No surprises there. He's just a stooge. So already we've been condemned and attacked by the Venice Commission, which is an expert body on judicial systems in Europe, and it said, Malta is not a functioning democracy and you need to overhaul the judicial system. It is very dangerous because the power is in the hands of one man. We saw it all coming together when the Prime Minister said, "I'll decide whether to give the middleman a pardon or not." Very dangerous stuff, because Joseph Muscat, the Prime Minister of Malta, is implicated in the assassination. Fully implicated. There's no other way of saying it. I mean, he is. So then you have Jürgen Fenech being arrested on the Wednesday, sailing off in his luxury yacht. And he was apparently spotted by one of the Times of Malta journalists, a guy called Jacob Borge, who's been brilliant, and he's been exposing stuff left, right and centre. So Jürgen Fenech is arrested, and Jürgen Fenech wants a pardon. Jürgen Fenech started spilling the beans. So just to go back, Konrad Mizzi, the Minister of Tourism, who's also in control of Air Malta, so I advise people, if you're thinking of coming on holiday in Malta, don't, number one, and don't ever book an Air Malta flight because it's run by a money launderer called Konrad Mizzi. Don't go there. So Konrad Mizzi resigned from his position on the same day as Keisha Kembry resigned and was arrested by the police in relation to the assassination of Daphne. But Konrad Mizzi is still fulfilling his ministerial responsibilities for some reason. Konrad Mizzi has a Panama account set up by the Prime Minister's accountants, but he's still, busy doing his stuff. So Thursday, I flew back out here. I'd come back to Glasgow and I flew back out here on Wednesday because I heard Keisha Kembry's been arrested and I wanted to be here because I've been part of this fight for over 2 years. On the Thursday, it was really a nightmare. News was coming through about things that Jürgen Fenech was saying about the whole plot and the people involved. And he put his finger directly on Keisha Kembry. And the stuff coming through was things about having a murder kitty. These are the words. Jürgen Fenech, who also runs casinos, etc., is the richest man in Malta. He put a bet on the 2017 election. Just before the election, Daphne Caruana Galizia exposed lots of things, including that the Prime Minister's wife was the ultimate beneficiary owner of another Panama account called eGrant, which the Prime Minister categorically denied. The biggest lie in Maltese history, he called it. Rubbish. So Jürgen Fenech put a bet on the election of 50,000. He won and he made 150,000 for the murder kitty. I mean, it's as gross as this, it's gross. Then the word came out that Keisha Kembry, who at that time was still in police custody, had a doctor. And while the middleman and the main man, Jürgen Fenech, were under arrest, both of them went to hospital. Unbelievable. I mean, okay, you're going to be stressed out because you're being done for a massive assassination, a brutal assassination that the world knows about. But apparently the story came out that Jürgen Fenech went to hospital in order that his doctor, who is Keisha Kembry's doctor, could pass notes. So Keisha Kembry at that stage is playing some kind of crazy adolescent espionage game, passing handwritten notes to Jürgen Fenech, trying to get himself off the hook. So all this information is coming through last Thursday. On Thursday evening, so by which time, I think I'm right in saying, a pardon had been given to the middleman, courtesy of the Prime Minister who's implicated in the assassination. Thursday night, during the day on Thursday, during the afternoon, the Prime Minister, I say Prime Minister, he's head of a criminal organisation, so I say Prime Minister in that respect, said, the investigation will be over soon in a matter of hours. What is he talking about? Keisha Kembry was still under arrest. That evening, I was actually out putting up posters. We have a big national demo today, and we're hoping thousands of people come. We've been demonstrating every day. So we heard the news that Keisha Kembry had been released with no explanation. There was no need to hold him anymore, said the police. I mean, this was quite incredible. After a day of revelations about his part in it, he was simply released without any explanation. That evening, the Muscat holds a 7.5 hour long cabinet meeting in Castile, which is where we're protesting today. It's the office of the Prime Minister in Valletta. He holds a 7.5 meeting to decide, he says, whether or not to give a pardon to Jürgen Fenech. So during this evening, there are protesters outside, including Daphne's two sons, Matthew, who was the one who found his mum when she was blown up. He's a journalist. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He also found his mum immediately after the car bomb. Paul, Daphne's youngest son, who's also a journalist and works with Tortoise, was also there. At a certain point in the evening, and we're talking 2 or 3 in the morning, I mean, this meeting went on and on, this cabinet meeting. Journalists, international and local, were locked inside the office of the Prime Minister. They were illegally detained inside the office of the Prime Minister. They were not allowed out. It was like watching a third world communist dictatorship from about 60 years ago. It was very, very frightening. The people who were detaining them are thugs and known thugs. They are Labour Party thugs. Back in the 80s, these thugs were very apparent, maybe not the same people, but some of them are, used to beat people up in the street. There were murders then too. The same thugs were there in the Prime Minister's office, restraining amongst the local and foreign journalists, Daphne's youngest son, Paul. I mean, it was quite unbelievable, and it was deeply scary, because what it looked like to everybody, including the international media, was that it was a mafia takeover, that the government had finally said, we're mafia. We know they're mafia, but this is like them saying, we're mafia, like it or lump it, this is who we are, and that is what we are, in the eyes of the world and in the eyes of Malta. So it was a very sleepless night. On the last Friday, Joseph Muscat, the Prime Minister, announced his resignation. I mean, I'm sorry, criminals don't resign, criminals go to jail. By this time, Jürgen Fenech had already mentioned Joseph Muscat, the Prime Minister, as involved in the assassination plot. I mean, you couldn't make this up if you tried. It is quite surreal.
Now, as you say, Lizzie, sorry, the police, the judiciary are kind of politically connected to the Prime Minister and so on. So what are the chances of an actual fair trial and a fair investigation ever coming to anything?
Well, last night, you had Jürgen Fenech back in court in the evening. In court were all Daphne's family. Her parents, who are in their 80s, beautiful people, they come to all the demonstrations, they're incredible. Her 3 sisters, and I think 2 of her sons, maybe all 3 sons, but I'm not sure. They're all in court, they're there, meters away from this man, Jürgen Fenech, who's been accused and spilling the beans about really, really horrendous details about the plot to kill their mother, their sister, their daughter, their wife. Daphne's husband was there as well. And Jürgen Fenech was charged with complicity in the assassination. So he hasn't been charged with the assassination, but he's been charged with complicity, and he was taken off to jail.
Mm-hmm. And that would potentially carry a life sentence as well, I think, wouldn't it?
I don't know what it means, and to be quite honest, Malta is not a normal country that, you know, when we say resignation, for example, it doesn't mean what we think it means in Scotland. People resign because they make mistakes. People resign because they're related to somebody who knows somebody who's involved in a scandal. People resign for some kind of scandal. Here, resignation is not like that. You know, I mean, the idea that the Prime Minister will resign is not a normal resignation. Mm-hmm. The Prime Minister has been implicated in the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia, which is not surprising for us. Mm-hmm. It's surprising for quite a lot of people, but not for us who have been intimately involved for over 2 years trying to get justice for Daphne.
Yeah, no, my understanding was that Muscat had said he would resign once the case was wrapped up.
Yes.
He's not actually standing down yet.
Once Jürgen Fenech had been charged, which is a gross assumption in itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you know Jürgen Fenech's going to be charged? And if he isn't, what do? Stay in power? He talked about he wasn't going to abdicate. I mean, people here talk about him as the king. They talk about him as God. We have our protest memorial. That's one of the things that we do that is, you know, internationally known. We place candles, we place flowers, we place posters, we place photos every single day at this protest memorial in Valletta. Every single night, this government removes it.
Mm-hmm.
Every single night. So the other day, one of the strong Labour Party stalwarts calls on the Labour Party faithful to place candles in their windows to pray for Joseph Muscat. He's the Prime Minister. I mean, this is like some third world banana republic on acid. And I was saying, you know, oh, presumably then they stole the candles from the memorial and put them in their windows to pray for their God. I mean, it's utterly bananas.
Yeah. You mentioned there that there obviously is a division amongst the people in Malta. Do you think the majority are on the side of the family and the other victims of this corruption?
What has happened, and it is a very good thing. When we had a 2-year anniversary in October, which was the 2-year anniversary of the assassination, and Rebecca Vincent from Reporters Without Borders spoke. Many people spoke. She was one. And she said, we don't want to be here again this time next year asking for justice for Daphne, because we want to have achieved it. Now, at that vigil, there was a strong feeling that there was a sea change. Things had changed. I mean, we walked behind our Occupy Justice banner. We stopped at the Labour Party headquarters. Everything's small in Malta. Everything's closed. Everything's, you know, a stone's throw away. We stopped and we chanted up at them, justice, justice, justice. Not one of them did anything. Not one of them retaliated. That's very unusual. Mm-hmm. That's just a small indication. Now, thousands of people are coming out because it's too much. You know, we've been a small minority group. We've been attacked, assaulted, harassed, people being given death threats, etc. And now, thousands of people are coming on these protests because it's too much.
Mm-hmm. And the excuse me, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was about to ask you. I'm
going to have to go soon. We have a demo this afternoon. I have other things because I'm part of helping to organise and stuff. So I don't have a lot of time to talk. I apologise as well. I'm kind of looking at my phone,
no problem,
checking for a message.
Just one or two more questions then, very quickly. The special rapporteur for the Council of Europe, Peter Omtzigt, called just this week for the Prime Minister to resign.
Yes.
I mean, that's a fairly big step.
The European Parliament is sending delegations urgently next week. I actually tweeted, going, you need to come now. After what happened on Thursday, which was deeply frightening, I was tweeting, going, you have to come now. But they're coming next week. Peter Omtzigt has written a full report. I haven't had time to read it yet. But, you know, he's been on the case. He's been brilliant. And he will not let this government rest until there's justice for Daphne, nor shall we.
So what could the Council of Europe or other international bodies do to help here?
Well, we need their physical presence because, you know, I think that's always helpful. We just need their physical presence here. We've always needed external help. I've always said it won't come from within Malta. Having said that, there are thousands of people now on the streets instead of several hundred. And that in itself is a great sign. There are Labour Party supporters coming to our protest now to support the trade unions, to support various different groups that have not supported us before. We have it now. So there's much more unification, a much stronger voice, many more people, many more young people. The students have come out. Mm-hmm. Which sounds crazy after 2 years, but now in Malta people live by fear. You know, they don't speak, omerta, maybe I'll lose my job, maybe I won't get a job, maybe I won't graduate, blah, blah, blah. That's how Maltese society works. And there's something that's happened now, which means people are so angry with what's going on that the fear has subsided for now and hopefully forever. Because it's the worst characteristic of Maltese society is that fear. Because people just don't come to the demos. Because who wants to see somebody might see my face.
Yeah. So, well, I suppose anything anything that brings these issues to light and makes people willing to stand up, that's got to be a good sign for Malta going forward.
Definitely. I mean, we have a demo today at 4 o'clock Maltese time, 3 o'clock your time. If people want to go online, if people want to go onto Facebook, we have Occupy Justice Malta Facebook page. We stream live. You'll get all the information that you need. So that's on Facebook, Occupy Justice Malta. On Twitter, Occupy Justice Malta. We have a page. Please follow it.
Okay.
You know,
and is there anything else that people here can do to support the cause?
Oh God, sorry, you've caught me on the move for that question. Follow our page. Tell people, just tell people what's going on here. People that don't know, it has made international news. It's been on the BBC, The Guardian. The Guardian reporter was here. She was, I think, one of the journalists locked inside Castile. So it's all in The Guardian, it's in The Times, it's in The Economist, it's in the UK papers, and it's on the UK news. The BBC, I don't know about ITN, I just don't know, but it's on the BBC News. Look out for it. Be aware of it. If you're in contact with your local MP, contact them. Ask them to put pressure on this government. Hopefully. I mean, what we want is not resignation. We want them in jail.
And presumably an end to this kind of endemic corruption. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Yeah. But listening to people yesterday, with banners, anti-corruption, shouting against corruption. Corruption is part of Maltese society as well. So to see people standing up and saying, do you know what, we don't want corruption, you think brilliant.
Yeah.
Because Maltese society has that corruption as an integral part of it. And the only way it can move forward and change is for the fear to go and for the corruption to go and for people to go. It's not a way to work. It doesn't work.
Well, Lizzie, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been an outstanding correspondent for us. I mean, Broadcasting Scotland will keep talking about this story for as long as there's still a story to talk about. So I do hope the protest goes well today. I hope just stay safe, and all our best wishes to the family, the friends of everybody who's associated with this. It's a horrible thing to talk about, but it is something that we do need to talk about. So thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you to everyone there who's keeping up the pressure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lizzie. We will talk to you again soon, I hope.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
So that was Lizzie Eldridge speaking to us live from Malta. Just an incredible story. As she says, this is Malta, a member of the European Union. We would expect a much higher level, a much higher standard of justice within the EU than we're seeing in Malta. So as she said, you can follow Occupy Justice Malta on Facebook, on Twitter. You can talk to your own MP about this, try and get our government to put some pressure on Malta to do better in every respect. We will, as I said, keep following this story. Lizzie has been such a fantastic resource for us in keeping us up to date on all of this. And it is the kind of thing that we want to keep talking about. On that note, in order for Broadcasting Scotland to keep talking about anything, especially important stories like this, we need your support. We talk about this quite a lot, but it costs a lot of money to run a TV station, even one that runs on the kind of budget that we run on, which is lower than any other TV station I think you'll ever find. We are trying right now to raise some money because we're in imminent danger of running out of money. It's not a pleasant thing to talk about. It's kind of uncomfortable for us, and it's uncomfortable for you, especially in the run up to Christmas, for us to be asking for money. But unfortunately, it's the only way we can stay on air, and we do need your support. As a little example, though, just to give you an idea of the kind of things we can do, the kind of things we want to do more of, we've got a few clips we want to show you, and if maybe there's somebody in your life who doesn't know much about Broadcasting Scotland, this little package that we're going to show you now will just give them an idea of what it is that we do, what it is that you can help us to grow, help us to develop with your support. You can see on the screen there just now, broadcastingscotland.scot/donate to become a supporter. It's a big deal, and I know it is just a terrible time to be asking for money in the run up to Christmas, but anything you can do to help will make a big difference. But as I say, here are just a few clips of different interviews, different events we've been to, and we hopefully that gives you a picture of what Broadcasting Scotland can be.
In the House of Commons, the answer we get from the Prime Minister is that it was the Conservative Party that gave the UK their first female Prime Minister, that it was the Conservative Party that gave the UK the second female Prime Minister. But let me say very clearly, as a woman, your gender doesn't matter a jot if you use it to kick away the ladder for other women.
I think the extension of Article 50, if that happens, just means we're going to get more and more of disinvestment and job losses and the undermining of the economy. And the other thing that's worth bearing in mind is 2021, if Brexit was to happen, and we didn't go relatively soon, then the idea that Brexit might become normalised is quite a worry. People get used to it and that's the new normal. So that, I think, I know is also in Nicola's mind. One of the things that's very important is what happens on a Section 30 order. So now, I have said, and I think Gillian may have been at the group meeting when I've said it, I don't think that certainly the SNP and I don't think the Yes Movement should be willing to anticipate a refusal of a Section 30 order as a reason not to call a referendum. If we want to have a referendum, then we decide we're going to have a referendum.
I'm Douglas, Pilar's husband. Here we are in beautiful Santiago de Compostela, in Galicia, northwest Spain. And there is the polling booth. There's another one just over there. So, 23 years I've been living here, and this is the first time that I'm going to vote. I did try once before and they knocked me back, but I think that was more because I didn't tick the right box. But this time with Brexit and everything, I went down, made sure, ticked all the right boxes. I've got my card. I even changed my driving license. I mean, I've got my British passport, but I'm in the process with the Fajon, there's a new word for you, of Brexit, of becoming Spanish. So it's a new experience for me. I haven't voted, I don't think, since in the 90s sometime. So I didn't get a vote in Indy Ref but I can't even remember the last time I voted. But this is the first time here. So let's go and see if they let me do it.
have lost the sound on Patrick Harvie. That was an interview that I did just after he was re-elected as the co-leader of the Greens a couple of months ago. I think we're able to go back to some of this footage now. I do apologise for that. So Patrick, yep, I think we have got it now. Is that right? Yep. So Patrick, we're here with you now. As returned again as the co-leader of the Scottish Green Party. How do you feel about that?
Well, very happy, also very energised by the debate that we've just had. It's the first time we've had so many candidates standing, not just for the co-leader positions or the equivalent that were there before, but for all the elected positions within the party. There's been a real buzz and energy about the debate, about the direction that the party needs to take, and the work that needs to happen and is already getting underway, preparing us for the 2021 election. The local elections the year after that, and who knows, potentially snap UK election, second EU referendum, who knows, maybe even a second independence referendum as well.
So what would you say are your top priorities going into this new period of leadership?
Green politics is the answer to a great many of the concerns that people have, and in particular, obviously, the growing level of awareness of the climate emergency, not just the fact of it, not just the scale of it, but the requirement for a transformational agenda for our whole economy. You know, climate change does not require of us to change our light bulbs or change our cars. It requires us to change our economy and the way that we live. It requires us to stop allowing the extraction of wealth from our economy by those who are only interested in their own short-term interests. And the way that we're running our economy is unhealthy for people and unhealthy for the planet. And it's green ideas that can actually set out a positive vision, a way of charting, for example, how Scotland will generate high-quality, rewarding jobs for the future, prosperity that can be fairly shared in the age after the fossil fuel industry, which everybody knows we cannot rely on going forward. Green ideas like the Green New Deal are about investing in that positive future. We're not seeing that transformational agenda coming from any other political party.
Now, when you speak about a Green New Deal, this is obviously a term that we've heard a lot in the American context recently. What do you think that would look like in the Scottish context?
Yeah, some people on the progressive side of the US Democrats have been talking about Green New Deal. Actually, the idea came from this country in the first place. In the wake of the financial crash and the failure of the deregulated free market model, people started talking about what a Green New Deal would look like as a response to that economic crisis, as well as the social and environmental crises that people are living with. So that remains the purpose of it. In the Scottish context, we're going to be publishing more information over the coming months about our proposals in the run-up to the 2021 election. We need to be looking at what the Scottish Government can do with its existing powers. At the moment, for example, it's still supporting unsupportable industries in our view, whether that's the fossil fuel industries, whether it's things like the arms trade, are getting public money, taxpayers' money, to create jobs in industries that are not good value for money, should not be the future of our economy, and that's a missed opportunity for investment in the transformational change, whether in our energy system, in our built environment, the high quality, affordable, warm homes that people need, in things like public transport, in waste reduction. There's a whole host of areas where work needs doing and public investment needs to be leading the change. Greens have set out proposals for how that can happen in the past. We'll continue to do that over the coming months and in the year and a half or so that we've got until the Holyrood election. We also need to go beyond and push beyond the limits of what devolution currently sets out and make sure that we're setting out a vision for what Scotland's role could be in the world if we are that independent European country that so many people in Scotland aspire to be.
And are there specific areas where you think the Scottish Government is currently ripe for a bit of green input?
The Scottish Government, I think, have talked a good game on a number of issues, whether that's around setting targets for climate change, but they've not then followed through with recognising that their policy of maximum oil and gas extraction is incompatible with those targets. They've talked a good game on things like land reform, but then they've rejected our proposals for taking that agenda through to its natural conclusion. They talked a good game on protecting communities, but then, for example, when we proposed legislation to regulate the short-term letting industry, which is taking huge numbers of homes out of circulation as actual homes and turning them into effectively hotel businesses, unregulated and untaxed, we proposed legislation to deal with that, and the Scottish Government first of all kind of thought they might work with us on that and ended up going with the Conservatives to water that down. So yeah, there are opportunities to push the government to go further on many of the things that their own members and supporters want them to be doing better, want them to be more radical and more ambitious on. It's green ideas that will push them in the right direction.
Now, obviously, there is another complication with Scotland in that there are powers that are reserved that the Scottish Government doesn't necessarily have any power over, and the Scottish Greens have no representation at Westminster. How do you think the Scottish Greens can interject themselves into UK politics on these kind of issues?
I think one of the things to remember on this question about the limits of devolution as they stand now, one of the things to remember is that poem that celebrated the opening of the Scottish Parliament. What people want is not a Parliament of feirties. You know, this Scottish Parliament has developed, has grown in its authority, in its competence, very often by straining at the boundaries of what is possible. I would say even Jack McConnell's administration did that on issues like protection for asylum seekers and some kind of flexibility on immigration. The UK government didn't fully respect that, but the effect was to grow the competence and the authority of the Scottish Parliament. More recently, on things, whether it's around the Brexit agenda, responding to that crisis, whether indeed it's the use of new tax powers, and the Scottish Greens have shown how we can go beyond the limits of what people thought were possible on fiscal matters. The Scottish Parliament needs to, yes, recognise that devolution exists. It is a limitation, but we need to be straining against the limits of those powers. We need to be demonstrating by our actions that we've got far more potential as a country to go beyond those limitations. That's the way that the Scottish Parliament will continue to grow in authority and confidence. That's the way that people in Scotland who were open-minded about independence but ultimately maybe didn't vote for it last time, those are the people that we need to win over, and we can do that by demonstrating what Scotland is capable of if it has the confidence to strike out in its own way, not in any way hostile to our neighbours south of the border, but demonstrating that Scotland as an independent country within the family of European nations can be a better place to live and a good global citizen.
Patrick Harvie, congratulations again, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
We are Democrats in Scotland, and we believe in the right of the people of our country to choose our own future. That's the historical roots of Scottish society. It's what we hold dear. It was the opinion that led to the foundation of the Scottish Parliament, the democratic expression of the will of the people of Scotland, and nobody, not Boris Johnson or anybody else, can stand in the way of the democratic wishes of the people of this country.
That need, that desire for independence is ever stronger than perhaps it was in 2014, so there's an obligation that we've got to give leadership to that campaign. That's what Nicola Sturgeon as our First Minister has been doing. We know that we have to send a very strong message to Westminster in any election that comes over the coming weeks, that it's the people of Scotland that must determine their own future. It will be the people of Scotland that will do that, not Boris Johnson.
Clara trusts that her fate now lies in the hand of the Scottish justice system, which she believes to be impartial, robust and independent. President Sanchez recently exposed himself to accusations of interference in the extradition process, whilst the leader of the far-right Vox party believes Scotland should face consequences if Clara Ponsati is not extradited. Our legal system will not be swayed by such interference or threats and will come to a decision based on the law. Clara believes that the Catalan people are changing the course of their history and that each act of repression by Spain brings the day that Catalonia is free closer. Visca Catalonia iutarem, fins al final y guanarem. Thank you.
Generally, my feeling about Boris Johnson is he can't be trusted on anything. He's managed to break his word many times since he became Prime Minister. And at the heart of this election for Scotland is this question of who decides Scotland's future. Are we going to allow it to be imposed upon us by Boris Johnson taking us out of Europe against our will, putting our National Health Service at the mercy of Donald Trump and trade. Generally, my feeling about Boris Johnson is he can't be trusted on anything. He's managed to break his word many times since he became Prime Minister. And at the heart of this election for Scotland is this question of who.
That's been done by Broadcasting Scotland in giving community activists, yes activists, Scottish activists a platform other than the traditional media outlets.
We have done an awful lot with Broadcasting Scotland. We've been all over the country talking to politicians at every level, talking to citizens. We've been at every one of the All Under One banner marches this year. We were at the SNP conference, did a number of really excellent interviews up there. And there's so much more that we could do. We would love to be covering sports. We'd love to be covering music events. We'd love to be doing a full range of TV programs, but as we say, it is up to you to help us do that. We have election coverage coming up on December the 12th. That's obviously going to be a big event in our national politics. And in order to do that, we do need, there's a lot that needs to be done here. There's equipment that needs to be updated. There's improvements we need to make to the studio. And that's all on top of just paying the bills, keeping the lights on. So every little bit that you can offer to help makes a big difference. And as well, I mean, we run with a remarkably small crew. There is literally one person behind the camera today running everything, getting this live broadcast out to you. And so if you have any skills that you have in the world of broadcasting, or any skills you'd like to learn, whether that's journalism, whether it's the technical side of things, being a camera operator, learning about lighting or sound or whatever it is, or if you want to be on screen and give me a day off once in a while, then also that would be great too. There are so many things that you can do here if you want to contribute. And if you feel like you can contribute, even if you don't have money to put in, there's an awful lot that you can do. So do please get in touch with us if there's any way that you want to get involved. As I say, journalists, techies, presenters, all have a role here. We can use every bit of talent that comes to us. So once again, broadcastingscotland.scot/donate. Every little bit you can contribute will help, and help us to create the kind of new independent media that Scotland and we deserve. That is pretty much all we've got time for today, though. I'd like to thank Lizzie Eldridge again for joining us. It's obviously a very stressful time for her being over there in Malta as this crisis hopefully starts to come to a head. We will hopefully talk to her again very soon. She's going to try and get us some footage from the protest that's happening today, although I know she's going to be very busy, and sometimes some of the Maltese authorities don't particularly like cameras either. So we can't promise anything, but we will definitely be talking to Lizzie again soon as that story develops. And again, if you're able to follow Occupy Justice Malta on Facebook or Twitter, give them your support wherever you can. That's also very, very welcome. But in the meantime, all that remains is for me to thank you for joining us. Thank those of you who have supported us for supporting us already. Our target right now is £20,000. And at the moment, we're at just over 1,400, having launched just a day or two ago. So every little bit helps. We will keep you up to date on how we're doing. And again, just thanks for everything. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for telling your friends about us. Thank you for everything that you do as part of the Broadcasting Scotland family. Every bit of it, every bit of support, whether it's financial or just watching the shows and enjoying them, is of immense value to us. You cannot imagine how much it means to us that people tune in and watch our shows. It's what we make them to be seen. We make them to help you learn more about what's going on in the world, especially here in Scotland. And everything that you do, everything that you bring to that matters a lot. So thank you very much for joining us today and every day. We will be back for Scotland at 7, tomorrow at 7, funnily enough. And all through the week, we'll be back again with the Full Scottish at the same time next week. So do please join us for all of that. In the meantime, have a great Sunday. Goodbye.